This episode is brought to you by Dave, a banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. Because when you download Dave, you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's Extra Cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest and then settle up later. Download Dave today at dave.com/Spotify. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC.
Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus. This fall, the Disney Bundle has all the action.
Holy smokes!
Watch live NFL and college football games on ESPN Plus. On Disney Plus, there's Loki Season 2.
War is on its way.
And Ahsoka.
Buckle up.
And on Hulu, you can watch The Boogeyman and Welcome to Wrexham.
Oh my God, the expectation.
All of these and more streaming this fall with the Disney Bundle. Blackouts and restrictions apply. 18 plus only. Access content from each service separately. Offer valid for eligible subscribers only. Terms apply.
I've been in dogs since 1991 because I want a thinking dog. I was up here in western Nebraska riding Harleys and training dogs. I don't sugarcoat anything, and if you don't like it, tough.
Thank you for joining us today. My name is Elliot, and this is the Flatlander Kennel Podcast with Chris Jobman. I'm the producer of this podcast, and Chris Jobman, owner-operator of Flatlander Kennels, is the host. This is our very first episode, and we just want to bring content to you guys about hunting dogs, retrievers, and what's going on at Flatlander Kennel. So we've got Chris here. Chris, go ahead and kick it off and just kind of tell everyone who you are and what you have going on there at Flatlander Kennels.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Elliot. Hey, this is Chris Jobman, owner-operator of Flatlander Kennels out here in western Nebraska, in God's country, like we like to call it. But, no, we're just going to start a little podcast. And, you know, I've listened to a few podcasts over the years, and Elliot does a great job. And he approached me with doing this. And I thought, you know what? I have nothing else going on in my life. Let's just go for it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about hunting dogs, training hunting dogs, hunt test dogs, training them, you know, the purposes of them, how it all works, kind of our day-to-day operations. And we're, you know, over the course of this podcast, we'll probably get into a lot of training philosophies and styles, stories. I've been doing this now this is my 23rd year. So I got a lot of stories to tell if we want to talk about stories, you know, and I travel across the country doing this. So we're just going to get into, you know, a lot of the philosophies, programs, our program, you know, how we like to try to do force fetch and force to pile and de-cheat and all those things. That's down the road. Right now, we're just going to kind of introduce ourselves and get going on that and see what we can come up with. It's going to be if anybody knows me personally, I'm a very unscripted person. Like, I just kind of ramble and go and I just start talking. And the more passionate I am about something, the longer I talk about it. But I'm going to try to have Elliot keep me under wraps here so I just don't ramble on forever. But we're going to be very unscripted. We're going to have a lot of fun. We hope to do some question and answer ones someday and just to kind of see where this leads.
Hey, Chris, when I was out there picking up Georgie and you gave me a tour of the whole facilities, and at that time I had no idea of HRC, AKC. I was completely ignorant to it. What I did notice is a whole wall of silver plates, all sorts of ribbons. And since then, I've kind of heard that Flatlander Kennels has put up some pretty good statistics as far as accomplishments. Can you kind of talk about how you guys have done over the years?
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate and blessed that we have great clients that love to play the game and understand what it takes to play the game. And we've got some great dogs, and we've had a lot of great dogs in the past. I suppose, you know, there's only one number I know for a fact that we have we have 50 Grand Hunter Retriever champions. I do know that. That is top 3 or 4 in the entire country ever. And so there's 50 Grand Hunter Retriever champions, and we're probably pushing 20 Master National Hunter Hall of Fame dogs. We've been running the Grand a lot longer than the Master National. But we have a lot of dogs that we're getting the MNHs on over the years here coming up. And we've probably got 500 plus HRCH master hunters, and numerous qualified all-age dogs. So, I mean, those are pretty good numbers that I'm real happy with. And one of the things I'm really happy with, it's not all the titles and it's not, all those things, which I'm very proud of. It's we have a very high pass rate too. And that's what we're really proud of is our, consistency week in and week out, that, our pass rate's real high. Our dogs are stylish. They run pretty hard and they enjoy what they do, plus they can perform. So, we're happy with all those titles, and hopefully they have more to come. I know our last Master National last year was really good to us. I don't know if it was a record or not, but it's got to be pretty close. Some people say it is. Some people say it is. I don't keep track of all those records that everybody else does, but we passed 24 out of 28 in last year's Master National, and we were literally inches from passing 28 out of 28. So we are really proud of that, and really proud of all the dogs. A lot of hard work went into that. So we've been pretty successful over the years, and you can't do it without a really good team. And I've had great teams over the years to do all this.
And do you know what the average success rate would be at the Master Nationals?
I don't know. I think, at one time somebody told me that the average master, like a master test pass rate, is about 30%. So it's got to be, 30%, somewhere in there, depending on each national. And the grand pass rate is anywhere from, it dipped down to 12% a long time ago, and it hovered at 12% a long time. But I'm guessing now the grand is anywhere from 15 to 20% pass rate. So those two venues are very difficult. But like I said, I'm not exactly for sure on 100% of those numbers. And, another thing that, I keep track of our pass rate a lot. And I do know a couple years ago, we had a phenomenal year. We had a bunch of young dogs coming up that were great. And we had 457 hunt test passes from about March 1st until the end of the Master National was towards November 1st. We had 457 hunt test passes, 68, 69 new titles just that one year alone. Wow. We had a phenomenal crew, and we worked hard. So, we go everywhere. We might have one truck running an AKC with 20 dogs on it, and the next truck or two running HRC with 20, 24 dogs in a weekend. And so we're scattered all over the country doing those things. So we hit both venues. And so that's kind of how we get those passes, the number of passes we can split up and do those things. But, we're averaging 180 to almost 200 master passes a year, which I know is pretty high. So we're pretty proud of all that. It's a lot of hard work. It's made me an old man quick, let me tell you.
And for those of you that don't know what all of the references that's Chris giving, I'm sure that we'll do a podcast soon where we go through, when you say Master Pass, what it means. We're going to hit all of that stuff, and we're going to educate you guys on the difference between HRC, AKC, what all the titles mean. So if you're an amateur like me, which I've just learned about some of this stuff in the last year, we're going to be going through all of that. So make sure that you're checking in with our episodes, because we're going to educate you guys on this whole hunt test world, along with during the seasons, keeping up with as the hunting season rolls on. I'm sure we'll be talking about our hunts and how the dogs are doing and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna inform all of our listeners on the hunt test games, the different venues, the pros and cons. And we'll do all of that and kind of how it, it adapts to hunting when the hunting season gets closer. And then we'll talk during the hunting season, too, about how our dogs are doing. And I'll be bored and I won't be able to ride my Harley. And we'll be shooting ducks, and we'll have to have something to talk about.
Give us a history of Flatlander Kennels. How did you guys begin, and how did you grow to where you're at now?
Basically, I've been in dogs since 1991. And my big passion was a hunter. I'm a big hunter. I love to hunt. It doesn't really matter what it is. Back in the day, I did the whole deer hunting and the whole 9 yards. Now, I'm mostly a waterfowl guy. But in the 90s, I ran Springer Spaniels, and I ran some low stake field trials with them. I did a lot of hunt tests with them. I had like 4 or 5 of them. And I hunted pheasants a lot in the 90s because where we lived in Nebraska at the time, it was really, really good pheasant hunting. So I got into that, in 1991. I bought my first dog. His name was Spencer, a little black and white Springer Spaniel. And they are heck on pheasants, boy. I'm going to tell you, they're unbelievable. But I just started training them, and I did it for, 10 years, almost 10 years, 9 years, as a matter of fact. And then I started a little thing called Flatlander gun dog training, because where I was living at the time is really flat. It's not flat where I live now, but it was really flat back then. So I just started a Flatlander gun dog training, and then I changed it to Flatlander Kennels, and in 2000, I started Flatlander Kennels and all that, and it just kind of exploded.
And you still just had the Spaniels? You still just had the Spaniels at this time,
No,
right?
Towards the end of the 90s, I had 1 or 2, and then my first quote-unquote retriever was a golden retriever named Bridget that my mother owned. And I started training her towards the end of the 90s there, and I took her to my very first hunt test in North Platte, Nebraska, and I ran her in seasoned, and we passed both days, and that was 98-ish, somewhere in there, and it just kind of took off. And then I had another guy come up to me, dog named Jake, who will come up on this podcast, one of my favorite dogs ever. But Jake and Gary approached me. Gary did a week after that hunt test, and he said, "Hey, I can't control Jake. Can you?" I said, "I don't know. Let's try it." So he technically was my very first paying hunt test client. He gave a little kid from basically Sidney, Nebraska, a chance, and Jake and Gary are both passed now, but I owe a lot of what we do today to Gary and Jake. And me and Jake traveled the country, ran the SRS, we were in the Crown Championship, we did all that. So Gary and Jake are really the ones that got me started in doing this for a living. Now my mother got me started training retrievers because she had the golden retriever Bridget. And I'll be honest with you, I just wanted to train her because I never trained a retriever. I thought, this will be fun. And then next thing you know, it's history. I never worked for anybody. I never apprenticed for anybody. I've had a lot of, tips and advice over the years, but I never technically worked for anybody. But with that being said, I did it for 10 years before I started taking a dime. And nowadays you see a lot of these kids come out and they do it for 1 year. And now they get a Facebook page, a truck, and a trailer, and they're a professional. And that's really not the way to do it. But like I said, I did it for 10 years before I took a dime. And my program that we have here at Flatlander Kennels is a trial and error thing. So I've gone all over the country doing seminars, and I've got manuals and brochures and pamphlets and books and all that stuff for our seminars. And a lot of our stuff is trial and error. So if I say, hey, this is a better way to do it, this is a better way to do it, because I've done everything wrong that you possibly can imagine. I've read every book, watched every video. I've been around people that are unbelievable at it. I've been around people that shouldn't even be in it. And I've been there and I've done it. I've made every mistake known to man. And the program that we use and how we do things are an accumulation of basically 25 years of being in retrievers. And I don't know how long it is. It's 30 years, 32 years of being in the dog world.
So when you started your training, like the first dog I ever tried to train, I picked up the book, The Water Dog, which I've got questions about that for you later, because when I got my dog, I mentioned that, and everyone, I think including you, says that's outdated method. It's a good method. It's outdated method. You just basically, you totally did it from scratch. You had no training program. You just started.
I read Water Dog. I read a book back in the day called HUP, H-U-P, by James Spencer, which means sit in the Spaniel world. So when you say HUP in the Spaniel world, that means sit. I read that book, and that's a really good book for beginners, but it's very, very outdated. There's way better methods nowadays. But I tried, and I did it. You name it, I did it. I read it, and I just started going by these books because I didn't know any better like anybody else, so I was just going by these books. And I'll never forget, I went to the Cabela's sidewalk sale, and I can't even tell you how long this was. This was in the 90s. I went to the Cabela's sidewalk sale, and back in the day, there was an HRC club out here called Panhandle HRC, and they were doing a dog demo. at Cabela Sidewalk Sales. And I went out and I watched them, and I'm like, what? Yeah, this is pretty cool. So I got to talking to them and say, hey, we got a hunt test in North Platte. You want to come watch? I'm like, I got a dog. I think you can do it. So I entered Bridget in season, and I ran season, and we passed both days. But I'm sure it wasn't very pretty at all. But so I went and watched finished, and I watched a dog run a 100-yard water blind, and I was blown away. I've never seen anybody do it. I've never seen a dog run a water blind like that. I've never seen anything happen like that. And the dog probably had 60 whistles, and I thought that was the greatest thing ever, which nowadays it's not. But then after I did that, I just got hooked. And if anybody knows me, I've got a very addictive personality, and once I throw myself into something, that's all I can think of, and that's all I do. And that's where that whole thing started.
So you just became obsessed, and then it took up tons of your mental space, and that's all you could think about, basically.
Obsessed is a great. I love the procedures and the process of getting an animal to do things that you don't think they're capable of doing. And back in the day, this was back when they had the e-collars were, push one button, it was in weld mode. And I'll never forget that. And when I had my springers, they couldn't put up with that. So I trained dogs for damn near 8-9 years without really using a collar. I didn't know anything about it. I was nervous about it. I didn't, the books that back in the day that you read, they didn't teach you anything about that. The Water Dog doesn't have it in there. Hupp doesn't have it in there. A bunch of that stuff doesn't have it in there. And I can't remember the book that I got, but and I started using the collar and learned how to collar condition. And I'm sure back in the day when I first started doing all that, it wasn't the greatest. And I was a little bit nervous at it, so I was probably a little bit too nervous on it and probably went too easy on them. But back in the day, you didn't have the same sort of collars you do nowadays. Back in the day, it was one button, it was weld mode, and you had to change out the plugs, and you had the red plug and the yellow plug, and you had antennas, these big ass antennas on these transmitters, and nowadays the collars have changed so much that if with a good collar conditioning program, you can get a lot accomplished. But back in the day, I didn't really do any of that.
Wait, are you gaming? On a Chromebook?
Yep. It's got a high-res 120Hz display, plus this killer RGB keyboard. And I can access thousands of games anytime, anywhere.
Stop playing.
What?
Get out of here.
Huh?
Yeah, I want you to stop playing and get out of here so I can game on that Chromebook.
Got it.
Discover the ultimate cloud gaming machine, a new kind of Chromebook.
This episode is brought to you by Chevrolet. Now's your chance to support a team with real grit. The Chevy ZR2 family of off-road trucks. The first ever Silverado HD ZR2 joins the all-new Colorado ZR2 and the Silverado ZR2 for a commanding lineup of off-road ready trucks, equipped to take on anything this season throws their way. Visit Chevy.com to learn more.
So when do you remember a moment in which you just fell so much in love with this that you wanted it to become your profession?
Yeah, I would say the mid-90s. The mid-90s, I was obsessed with golf and training dogs. And I'm still obsessed with both, but I don't play golf as much nearly anymore. But
Harleys, golf, dogs.
Harleys, dogs, golf, and hunting.
Is that the order?
No, there is no.
What is the priority order? What's number one, two, and three?
If the weather's really nice out, I'm getting on my Harley. That's just all there is to it. Yeah. If it's duck season, right, I am going duck hunting. So, and dog training falls in there somewhere, and golf, I love it, but I don't get to play it very much anymore because the Harleys have taken over our life basically when it comes to free time. But I can never get away from the dogs. The dog, I live here on the grounds. You know, my dogs are 50 yards away from me, and I never can get away from it. And getting on a Harley, that's about as American as you can possibly get. And where we live, you just get on it and go. So that's our big.
And it's beautiful out there. You do live in beautiful country.
It's
sure.
Gorgeous.
Kind of out by Castle Rock and
Chimney Rock.
So
and we basically live on the Oregon Trail.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And if you ever played that old Oregon Trail game, it went right by some of those rock structures.
Probably went in my front yard,
which was kind of cool for me when I was out there. Yeah. Yeah. So as you got your first paying customer for training dogs, how quickly did it progress? Because how many dogs do you have on the property right now? Like
right
70,
now,
last time I think.
Oh man, I bet we got 40, 40-ish. I people ask me that all the time. I honestly, I really don't know. But we've gotten to the point in my life and our business life and things like that. Once the last event of the year is over for us, which is basically the Master National or the Grand, I basically semi-retired from November 1st to basically March 1st. And what I mean by that is I own the Duck Haven Club, which is a little duck hunting club that I kind of run that, and all my guests and members, and I do that. And then we have a whole staff here. We got, Ryan and Julie and Andrew and all them guys that manage the kennel. And so our dog numbers go way down. So basically Andrew, one of my assistants, he comes over and he helps with the club. So he doesn't train anymore. But then we got Julie and Ryan, who are the staple here at the kennel. In the wintertime, they train all the dogs, and they do a great job. And if they have troubles with a dog, they ask me or whatever. But I'll be honest with you, I don't really mess with it much. That sounds terrible, but I need a break for one, because we run very, very hard, very hard. But we probably got 40 now, and we'll probably be about 80 all summer once we get cranking again. And we're about ready to start cranking here pretty quick.
And then we're actually going to go the second episode. We're going to go into that, which preparing the dogs for spring training season. So be ready for that episode to come out. This podcast is going to be right now. Our plan is to be bi-monthly. We're going to go every other week, and so be watching for those. Let all the dog guys let them know about this podcast.
And we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some fun special guests throughout the year. I've got people that. I have some of my best friends in the whole wide world are not podcasters. They haven't even heard of a podcast. But you are going to want to talk to them, and I'm going to make them get on it. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah, that sounds.
We'll have some good ones. Trust me.
Awesome guests.
We're going to have some good ones.
Now, going back to something you mentioned, you said your dogs go from like 70 to 40. And correct me if I'm wrong, but some people. They're the owner, but you're running their dog through the hunt test season, and then it goes back to them during that off season to be with the owner, and it cycles through like that, where then they come back.
Yeah, and sometimes it works like that, sometimes it doesn't. It all depends on where the dogs are at in training. If they're a young dog and the owners and clients want them to be a hunt test dog, then their first initial stay here is a pretty good stay. We want them to get through the basics. Forest fetching, of course, and then collar conditioning, of course, and then, force to pile and sit to pile and tee. And we want to try to get all that stuff accomplished, especially if they're going to be hunt test dogs. So that first initial stay, they'll stay quite a while. They'll stay, through the first hunting season, because honestly, the dogs probably aren't prepared to go hunting anyway. So they stay and we get all that basics done. And that way, when the weather gets nicer, we can get in the water right away and finish our swim by and de-cheat and all those things. So, but when a dog gets into its career, when the basics are over and everything's going well, and the dog is mentally capable of doing this, then we'll run him through the testing program, the hunt test program, all summer long. Then they go home, after the Master National, the Grand. They go hunting with their owners or hang out. Then they come back in February and we do it all over again. We've been doing that same exact program with some of these dogs for 8 and 9 years.
Yeah.
But they're also the dogs that have the grand titles and the MNHs, and they're in the Hall of Fame and, those sort of things. So, people are like, how can you not be with your dog? Well, you got to understand something. I mean, these dogs are athletes. They've got to run. They've got to train. They've got to do things, and they love to do it. And like I always tell people, so you're not going to send your kid to college because you're going to miss it. That's not real smart. So those dogs come back, and we just kind of keep going with them. And some dogs aren't here for hunt tests; they're just here for gun dogs, and they go through a 4, 5, 6 month gun dog program, and then they go home. We never see them again. It all just depends on what people want.
Well, it's such a great life form. One thing I've noticed about owning one of your dogs compared to my other two is the desire that she has. If I go a couple days where I haven't at least given her a chance to run, I can see everything in her eyes and her body language that she is just like. Now you guys have this. I don't know how you do it. These crazy off switches because she's calm as crazy in the house, but she starts becoming almost depressed. I can just see it. Because she's not getting to run. Yeah, and it's funny because she's out of Flash at Isla, and Flash is big a badass as there is around in the country, and his puppies are unbelievable. And then she's out of Isla, who's a Grand Retriever champion, Master Hunter, MNR female, who hopefully will get her MNH this year if she can run because she's a little bit older. But you wouldn't even know Flash was in the house. He is my main go-to hunting dog, and he's an absolute beast on the river up here. But he rides around the backseat of my truck the entire winter, lives in our house, sleeps on a dog bed. You wouldn't even know he was in the house. Isla's a little bit more busy, and she likes to walk around and follow Eileen around the house and that sort of thing. Flash runs over to his bed, and you don't even know he's there. So this misnomer about, hey, these super high-powered field trial / hunt test dogs don't have an off switch and they're just crazy all the time. I don't want one of them crazy field trial dogs. That's all BS, man. It depends on how you raise them, the training you put on them, and if they're truly a part of the family, if they're just thrown out in the backyard and not messed with. So it all depends on what you want out of them. Yeah, I remember when I was up there getting Georgia, you mentioned, and it's the first time I'd heard off switch with dogs at all, and I had no idea what it was. I actually had someone message me on Instagram recently because I've got a YouTube channel, and people that watch my YouTube channel, they know that Georgie's from Flatlander Kennels, and he was asking me about that. He's like, I know you got your dog from Flatlander Kennels. Can you talk to me about the off switch? And I don't even know really what to say about it other than when Georgie's in the field or when she's training, she has more desire than I can imagine a dog having. And then when she's in the house, like you said, she literally is just the calmest, sweetest thing. And and so what can you do? Because you mentioned an off switch to me, and we're going off track a little bit, but I think this is really interesting. You mentioned an off switch to me. Is that something that you can train for or breed for? It seems like to me that you have some type of algorithm in your brain to kind of how to replicate or how to produce.
Well, I don't know if you can actually train for an off switch. You definitely can probably maybe breed for an off switch. I don't. When I'm breeding, we do our breedings here, and I always tell this to people, we're not technically quote unquote dog breeders. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have 8, 10, 15 litters a year. We're more the 2 and 3 year litter people at the most. And I always tell people that the main reason why I'm breeding our dogs and having puppies is because I want to get them back in training first and foremost, because I'm breeding the males and females. Those are the dogs that I want to train. Those are the dogs that I want in my kennel that I know are going to be intelligent. They're going to be trainable. They're going to love to retrieve. And so I put the males and the females together that are going to complement each other. And it's funny that you say that because we have a whole kennel full of dogs out there and extremely well-bred dogs, out of NFCs and FCAFCs and all, their pedigrees are impeccable. And I will tell you, and this is not, I'm not bragging on ourselves, it's just something that has happened over the last 5 or 6 years, is the best dogs in our kennel, if you look down the list, are typically, they come from our breedings. And it's craziness. I can't tell you how many Flash puppies we have out there right now. I wish I could fill the whole kennel up with them. I mean, every single one of them, and Isla, but, and Barley, and all of our great dogs. But we breed dogs that we want to train. We're not doing it to make the money on selling the puppy. I want to train those dogs. I want those dogs in our kennels. Because I'll be honest with you, we're lazy. It makes our job easier when you have a great dog. And the off switch thing, I think a lot of that might come down to Obviously the personality dog, but I think if you put control on the dogs, you give them a job for one, and then you put obedience on them and you make them mind and they know who the alpha is, they're not going to, run the household unless you let them. And so if you let them run the household, it's going to happen. Because I'm going to tell you right now, my wife's the sweetest thing in the whole wide world. And them dogs overrun her every day, all day long. I come in and I yell at them, like, knock it off. It's done. They're like, we're good. He's home now. And so they know who they can run over and who they can't run over. So if you're the alpha of your family or whoever, the dogs know that. And if you say sit means sit, lay down, it means lay down. So.
And exercise also.
They got to have a job.
An unexercised, high-powered dog is going to struggle.
You have to give them a job. And everybody's like, oh, I got this high-powered dog, I can't control him. Like, we walk 3 miles a day. Like, you know how far a dog can run? Like, walking a dog 3 miles means absolutely nothing. They have to run. Yeah. They have to get some energy out. And here's another thing, too, what people don't understand is they have to use their brain. You have to teach them how to learn because they love to learn. And if you dog that isn't learning, that dog is chewing up your couch. It's dragging your shoes around. It's eating your furniture and your tables and those dogs. If you give them a job and they mentally learn and they physically are exerting energy, when they come in the house, they want to relax. If you don't do that, if you're at home, if you're at work all day and they're running around in the backyard or the kennel and you don't do anything with them and you bring them in the house, well, yeah, they're going to be crazy. That's 100%. It's just like little kids, same thing.
Working dogs are bred to work, and if they don't work, you're gonna have issues, right?
That's exactly right.
So I do want to go back to the history of your kennel because I'm really interested about the progression. So you got up to the point where you took on your first job, and how long did it take you to go from that first dog to kind of where you're at now? How quickly was that progression?
I'm still working on it. It's been 23 years. So, I mean,
are you maxed out with your numbers, or are you still looking to try to have more than 40 to 80 in any given day? Or is
80 is a good number for us. I'd like to have more dogs through the winter, of course, because it helps with payroll and bills. Mm-hmm. But 80 is a good number for us. I mean, we got 4 full-time trainers here that go wide open, plus a whole staff of bird throwers and mowers and weed eaters and stuff. So, I mean, 80 is a good number. 80 is a lot. But we work very hard at it, and it's all-day deal.
Go into as far as your core beliefs and your philosophies. I know when I was training Georgie, there's all sorts of different systems out there that you can go by, and I didn't ever quite realize the difference. Some people are completely against force fetch. Some people are completely against e-collars. Some people, and I know you've kind of carved out your system is similar to some philosophies of some people and friends of yours, but yet you've kind of carved it out on your own. So talk a little bit about when it comes to your operation, your dogs, just kind of your core beliefs and philosophies.
Well, I always tell people this is what usually happens, and this is what usually happens is when you first start out training, you should be overly cautious, right? You're a little bit overly cautious, and you're really, really nice to the dogs, and they love you, and you love them, and this is the greatest thing ever, and oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this now, I'm making money. But then you go to a hunt test or hunting, and those dogs are completely out of control, right? Because you're more their friend than their boss. That's how it usually starts. And then the pressure starts setting in of you performing and getting results and that sort of thing. So then usually you get a little bit too heavy-handed, maybe you get a little bit too, worried about obedience, and it's not really fun for the dog much anymore. It's not really fun for you because you're worried about what everybody else is thinking, and you don't want to be quote-unquote embarrassed by a dog, and you're looking for clients, so you probably put a little bit too much pressure on them, and your dogs, kind of get a little slinky and that sort of thing. And then you get to the point where I'm at, where I just want to have fun with them. I want them to have fun. I want them to perform at a super, super high level. And I'm over the whole being embarrassed by a dog. I don't get embarrassed by a dog. Nobody ever should be embarrassed by a dog. It's just a dog. But I'm over all that, trying to impress other people, trying to, get my name out there. I'm as I'm doing my first episode of a podcast, I'm over all that. Right. But, right. This is your fault, by the way. But, and I always, when I give my seminars, I always just tell people, find a really good program, follow a good program, find a good mentor, go work for somebody that's really, really good. And our biggest philosophy is we like our dogs under control. We like them happy, which you can have two different things. You can have it at the same time. But I always tell our trainers and everybody, I say, you can be one of two dog trainers. You can either be a dog trainer that the dog is running to the bird, or you can be a dog trainer that the dog is running away from you. Which one do you want to be? And we want the dog, of course, running to the bird because that's what it wants to do. Now, there are dogs that come through the system where you got to make them do things, and they're kind of slinky and pouty, and they get their little attitudes. But in the grand scheme of things, and at the end of the day, we want the dog running to the bird and not running away from you. So there's a lot of different philosophies out there, and there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, so to speak. But that's how, and we always are try to err on the side of caution and always do what's best for the dog. Like I've told clients this. I said, listen, you've hired me to train your dog to the best of my abilities, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm always going to do the right thing for the dog because at the end, I do not care about your ego. I don't care what your buddy's dog's doing. I don't care what your brother's dog's doing. You hired me to train your dog, and I will on that dog's time frame. So, and that's, and everybody that listens to this podcast that knows me, that they've actually heard that speech. So, but it's kind of it wasn't exactly what your answer probably wanted to be, but my philosophy is basically I want the dog running to the bird, not away from me.
Right. That makes sense. And I at one point I thought this was true, and now I've kind of figured out that it's not, but I don't fully understand it. And I used to think that the training systems kind of fell into two major groups, either pressure or non-pressure. What would you say to someone that said either you train with pressure or you train with reward or non-pressure? Is that accurate?
There's always pressure. If people say they're a non-pressure trainer, they are full of what. There's always pressure. There's no such thing as 100% positive training. It doesn't exist. Because here's the thing: you put a leash on a dog, and you pull the dog's neck up to make it sit, whether you use an e-collar or not. That's pressure, right? You tap it on the butt and make it sit down. That's pressure. Now, there's different types of pressure, and there's, you can use the e-collars and that sort of thing. But the thing about it is in our game and for what we do, we call them the tennis shoe trainers, the ones that don't believe in e-collars and that sort of thing. You're going to find them in started and junior, and they will never be in season, senior, master, or finished, or the grand. That's where they stop because they don't want to be mean to their dog and that sort of thing. And you don't have to be mean to the dog. You just got to be the dog's boss. Right. And I always tell people this: the dog doesn't have to love you to do what you want to do, but a dog has to respect you because they are dogs and they will take advantage of every opportunity. It's unbelievable what they'll do. So if they don't respect you, and let's face it, guys, dogs are pack animals. There is an alpha in a pack. And if you cross the alpha in the wild, they kill you, right? So they dogs like structure. And some of them are born alpha dogs. And usually our best males are big, strong alpha dogs that literally respect basically one or two people their entire life. And me being one of them. But there's pressure associated with all of this, and now you shouldn't be scared of an e-collar unless you can't control your emotions. There is nothing wrong with an e-collar. There's nothing at all wrong with it. They're so much nicer nowadays. You can tweak them, and you can lows and mediums and highs. Unless you can't control your emotions, then don't be scared of an e-collar. Just get with somebody that knows what they're doing, and learn a really good, proper collar conditioning program.
Do you think emotions are the biggest factor to amateur trainers and whether they can get a dog to, say, a finished or a master level, just their emotions?
I think it's a number of things. I think, for one, they quote unquote don't want to be mean to their dog until they call us and we have to get control of the dog when the dog has ran wild for 3 years. That's not fun. And then, another thing too is what really hurts some amateurs and pros that I know. Ego. Ego has hurt more dogs than any e-collar or healing stick known to man. Ego is an absolute worst possible thing that you could have coming into training a dog. You got to understand something. When we're running a hunt test or whatever, we're not sitting in the gallery when let's just say Georgie has a bad run and finish this summer. I'm not sitting in the gallery going, "Oh my God, Elliot's dog's terrible. Look at her go." Mm-hmm. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. The only person that cares is you. Because your ego is so big. Not you, of course, but the people's egos are so big that all they think about is their friends being embarrassed by their friends. Listen, guys, it's a dog.
Right.
It's a dog, and in the grand scheme of things, who cares? And egos have just destroyed dogs. It is, they want to run them too quick. Like, oh, my buddy's dog is 9 months old, running started. Like, who cares? That's not the goal. The goal is not started. So put your ego away. I don't care. So you do what's best for the dog, and I think a lot of amateurs don't ever follow a true program. They get on Facebook, which is the worst dog training tool in the history of the world.
Right.
Besides Freddie King's deal, that's great. But they get on Facebook, and everybody is a Facebook trainer. There are so many fake people on Facebook that think they can train dogs. It's ridiculous. And here's the thing. You don't see the great dog trainers of the world sitting on Facebook giving advice. It doesn't happen. They're too busy training dogs. Right. So, everybody, and then if you join a club, everybody's a pro in the club and everybody's got advice. Everybody tells you to do this and don't do that and don't do this. The biggest thing is you got to find you a good program and stick with it. Stay on it, stick with it, follow it, ask questions, find a good pro, not just the, mud puddle kennels down the road. Find a good pro that can actually help you and that has touched 1,000 dogs, or more. And because everybody nowadays is a pro, but you got to be careful. You got to sift through the junk. But I think a lot of that is ego. Like I'm getting back to, they don't want to ask for help either, right? Because they don't want to go to a pro's kennel and train, and they're embarrassed by their dog. We've had people come here that are more nervous to run in front of us than at a hunt test.
Right.
My guys, that's silly. I don't care. Let's just help you and let's just move on.
I can tell you I would be extremely nervous to run Georgie at Flatland. I can tell you that. I would be.
It's going to
way more nervous than a hunt test.
It's going to happen this summer. I'm going to judge you, and we're going to put it on here.
I'm sloppy.
We're going to talk there about your scores, and we're talking about what you did wrong. That's going to be a long podcast.
Well, we're diving into finished this summer. She passed every season test. No, I did get lucky because you had to check my ego because I was going to jump into seasoned, and you're like, no. Get yourself into started. And thank God I did that. But she passed all her season. She was has yet to fail one. And I've watched the finished, and I think I've got a feeling I'm overconfident. And I think it's going to humble me this summer, is my guess.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to happen. I get humbled every hunt test, every grand, every Master National. Just when you think you got the world by the balls, it slaps you in the face, and you drive home like, what the hell happened today? It's just it just happens, man.
And I will give a shout out to Freddie King's because I use that a lot. You and I talked through the Duck Hunt podcast, and I texted you some, but I was following the retrievertrainer.com Freddie's system, And he's got a great system, and he's very accessible. And I really hope we have him on here at some point.
Yeah, well, Freddie's a very, very good friend of mine, and he does a phenomenal job with those dogs. He has got a great, for $60 a year, that program is ridiculously inexpensive, and it's great.
It is.
I'll be quite honest with you, it might be better than most books and stuff out there by other people.
Well, and with his Facebook group, anytime you don't have questions, you can throw it up there, and people start giving you advice, and then I think Freddie watches the advice that people are giving, and then he'll chime in and kind of like, but it's a fantastic, the support group system of that is just wonderful.
It is, and every once in a while I'll interject in there, me or my buddies will interject in there just because Freddie's our friend, and we want to help him out on his site, because I mean it is a very good resource for sure.
Right. Well, I think that about wraps up this first episode. Do you have anything else, any points you want to make at the stuff we've been talking before we close it out?
No, not really. I think this first one was a little bit informative, and it'll get a lot better as we go. You're going to hear a lot of rambling. Just get ready, everybody.
Sift through it for all the gold nuggets there's going to be. Guys, a big part of this podcast that Chris would like to do is to be able to answer questions that you guys have, whether you're a pro trainer, whether you're an amateur. We've got a Facebook group, and it is called Flatlander Kennels Podcast with Chris Jobin. Make sure you join that and join us there, and we will put these podcasts there for you to listen to. If you have questions, we can interact. And so go and check that out. We are going to put out so much great information. We're going to go through specifics of details of different training styles, but then we're just going to have fun. We're going to have guests on. It's going to be awesome. So go right when you're done listening to this. First, give us a rating. It really helps us out. Give us a rating, and then go to Facebook, Flatlander Kennel Podcast with Chris Jobman. Join it and start throwing down your questions there. So we're just going to have some episodes that are just Q&A, where we just go over them and over.
Yeah, that would be good.
Right. So thank you for listening to this one. We will have episode 2 out very, very soon, where we're going to talk about preparing your dog for spring hunt test. I say we're going to talk about it. You're going to talk about it. I'm going to listen. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us. This has been episode 1 of the Flatlander Kennel Podcast with Chris Jobman.
All right, guys. Thank you. See everybody at the line. Take that aim.